Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Pete's CD Vinyl World. Today, was going to do a CD and vinyl finds video, which I'll still show you at the end, but found out yesterday that Martin Birch passed away. So, for us hard rock heavy metal fans, Martin Birch was sort of like the George Martin of heavy metal. Produced everyone from Deep Purple, Rainbow, Whitesnake all the way up through Slide It In, actually. Produced Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules with Ronnie James Dio on vocals for Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, a couple albums, and of course Iron Maiden. He was basically exclusively their producer for everything from Killers to Fear of the Dark. So yeah, hadn't heard about anything he was up to because he was 71 and retired in the early 90s after Fear of the Dark. I had heard a long time ago he was up to something outside of the music business. I forgot what it was, but yeah, I mean, he was only in his 40s when he retired from producing, and it's kind of strange. It's kind of early, but maybe it'll come out what he was up to the past, 25, 30 years or so. But anyway, just wanted to show some albums here. Of course, everybody knows these two: In Rock, Machine Head from Deep Purple. It's one of my favorite Rainbow albums. This is a great sounding album. He only did Cultosaurus Erectus and this album from Blue Oyster Cult, but really, I think they're their best sounding albums. Blue Oyster Cult before this, not known for sonically great sounding albums, really. If you listen to their earlier albums, but this one's a really great sounding album. And of course, Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, Somewhere in Time, and this is the last album he produced, which was Iron Maiden's Fear of the Dark. So he was more from the engineering side of things, meaning he wasn't a producer, say like Bob Ezrin or like David Foster, who gets together with the artist and co-writes the songs and does all this stuff to enhance everything. His production style, I believe, was on the drier side, but it just didn't have the bells and whistles of a lot of those other producers. Eddie Kramer would be a similar type producer, you could say. But even still, like this album to me sounds sonically different than some of the other Maiden albums, but it's still very dry and very heavy. Also produced Fleetwood Mac up until Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks joined the band. So through the Peter Green and the Bob Welch era, he produced, and also arguably produced the best live album of the 70s, and without a doubt the best live album of the 80s, Iron Maiden Live to Death. So rest in peace, Martin Birch, and listen to some metal today. What about all these people doing these unboxings for Paul McCartney Flaming Pie and the Stooges box set? It's like everybody's doing the same exact video. I mean, if you want to see what they look like, just go on the website and see what's in them, or Amazon or whatever. It has got pictures. Why didn't somebody like listen to all those things and tell everyone how it sounds, other than just unboxing it like, here's the 5 CDs that come in the box, like. Anyway, I don't get it. So, picked up some stuff at the thrift store and Princeton Record Exchange this past weekend, so just wanted to go through it. Nothing earth-shattering, just some stuff I didn't have. Let's do some CDs first. This is Changes Bowie. This is a compilation put out by Rykodisc when all of his albums were put out by Ryko, I believe in the late 80s through mid 90s. Replaces, I believe RCA had put out Changes 1 Bowie and Changes 2 Bowie. And this encompasses his whole career through Space Oddity, through Blue Jeans, so all of his pretty big songs. So most of these CDs were $1 or $2, so I figured I'd gotta get them. Bangles Greatest Hits. I had some Bangles, but like a lot of Greatest Hits sets, this one has, I think, 2 exclusive tracks or B-sides, so I figured I'd pick it up for a buck. Frank Zappa, Burnt Weenie Sandwich. This is, I believe, one of 2 albums that were put out with sort of all the leftovers from the original Mothers of Invention. This one and Weasels Rip My Flesh. So this came out in 1970, right after Hot Rats, I guess. I would say largely instrumental. It has a couple of songs, doo-wop type songs that I believe would have fit on Reuben and the Jets. The centerpiece of the album is A Little House I Used to Live In, this 18-minute long song, but it's got some other good stuff on it. I mean, a lot of people highly rate this album, but I prefer the Zappa period from, like, the 10-year period from, say, 69 through 79, like Hot Rats through Shake Your Booty. I do like a lot of the early 80s stuff, too, as well, but, yeah, I like that stuff better than the original Mother stuff. But that's just me, hey. Goo Goo Dolls Jed. This is their second album. I like the Goo Goo Dolls a lot, all the way through A Boy Named Goo. After that album hit big, they just seemed to become almost an acoustic pop band. But if you never heard their earlier albums, especially their first 2, which are more on the punk rock side, and actually most of the songs are sung by the bass player Robbie Takak, or however you say his name. Johnny Resnick on this one only sang 2. On their first album, didn't actually sing any. So you can see how the band gradually, their next album, Hold Me Up, continued from this album on, and then when they signed to Warner Brothers, they put out Superstar Car Wash, which was not as punky, more alternative, but still very good. Same with Boy Named Goo after that. One of those bands that completely changed their sound once they hit it big. But I didn't have this one, so a couple bucks. Figured I'd get it. Lita Ford, Dangerous Curves. This was put out in 91. Had a semi-hit with Shot of Poison, which was sort of like her follow-up to Kiss Me Deadly. That song has that 80s production, but the rest of the album is actually more raw and more rockin'. I would argue and say this album is actually like a no-frills metal album, if you know if you've ever heard that term before. I'm gonna do a video on no-frills metal one of these days, but basically what that is to me, and my brother also refers to it as that, and I've heard other people say that once in a while. No Frills Metal is sort of like that 1990 to 1992, maybe even to 93 period, where all of the hard rock and hair metal bands were sort of stripping down their sound and look. This is pre-grunge, so it was sort of a precursor to even grunge coming out, but the bands were moving in that direction anyway, but it was only around for such a short window since grunge completely knocked all these bands off. If that makes any sense. Like, one of the big No Frills metal album maybe is Kiss Revenge. If you look at them on that back cover, they're just wearing black leather and studs, that's it. As opposed to, say, Asylum, where they're all dolled up in glam and colorful outfits. So, yeah, this is pretty good, actually, surprisingly. But I didn't have this one. Next one, Pete Townsend, Psychodelic. I did not have this one. I believe this is his last solo album he put out. It's actually a long story, and luckily I found what's called the music-only version of it, because people were complaining that there was all this dialogue between songs and even over the songs, so they put out a CD version of it with just the music, which this album alone is 75 minutes. I can't imagine how long with the dialogue and everything. It's really pushing the limits to everything as far as CD. It's pretty good. At least half the songs are pretty good. Not his best solo album. I would argue it's probably his worst, but it's not bad. It's just way too long. Like, he's got 3 versions of this song. Mayor Barba, M5. I mean, how many times you need to repeat the same thing over and over? But I'm sorry, it's M3, M4, and M5. But yeah, it's okay, not bad. And I also didn't have this Pete Townsend live album. He put out, I think, in 1999. This is a benefit show. Largely acoustic. He does have a band with him, but some of the guys are playing just like samples and that type of thing. Not really a full band. Does a version of On the Road Again from Canned Heat. Then he moves into Anywhere, Anyhow, Anyway, Anyhow, Anywhere from The Who, and it's got all these samples and sound effects, and I'm like, oh no, I hope the whole album is not like this. But the rest of it is pretty good. A little is enough. Drowned, You Better You Bet. The only thing is he does like a 12-minute version of Won't Get Fooled Again right into a 13-minute version of Magic Bus, and those two they could have played 3 other songs instead of extending those 2 for 25 minutes, And it comes with a bonus disc with 2 songs that he did with Eddie Vedder, I guess on a different night. A shorter version of Magic Bus and Heart to Hang On To from the Rough Mix album. So, pretty good live album. Not great, but worth it for a couple bucks. So, onto the records. I picked up a couple singles. I like starting to collect singles now, just mostly for the cover art and, sometimes the singles actually have a radio mix, which is different. This is Grand Funk's We're an American Band, and it comes on actually yellow vinyl. So Princeton Record Exchange, they don't specialize in singles, so they pretty much sell all their singles for $1 or $2. So you can find some good stuff there. Jerry Rafferty, right down the line. I have this album, but I've never seen a single from it before, so I figured I'd pick that up. 38 Special Tour de Force. This was probably their last, really big album. Back Where You Belong, 20th Century Fox, If I'd Been One, those are the hits off of this album, so not bad. I like 38 Special. Chicago Transit Authority, the first one, did not have this. In fact, I only have one compilation from Chicago. I was familiar with about half of this album, but it is pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's as good as everyone talks about. I actually think it's a lot more bluesy than jazz, what people talk about. Also, Peter Cetera only sings one song, lead vocals on, and then 2 others he sings co-lead vocals on. So it's funny how he started here and then moved on to becoming the face of the band, basically. Next up is Todd Rundgren's Utopia. This is their first album. This was sort of his side band, which was the more heavy progressive elements of his music. Eventually they became more of just a power pop band, but this album only has 4 songs and it's 60 minutes. So it's like pushing the limits of the LP. The second side only has 1 song, The Icon. A lot of it is a little overblown. These songs could have been shortened by a lot. Definitely hear the yes, and also sounds a lot like mid-70s Frank Zappa to me. Maybe a little bit of Genesis thrown in, but not very many vocals on here as well. Pretty good. I'm not a huge Todd Rundgren fan, but for $1, I figured I'd pick it up. The Kings. This was a Bob Ezrin production. They put out a couple albums in the early 80s. Not very good. Most known for the song The Beat Goes On and Switch Into Glide. It was a minor hit, sort of. Almost like not power pop, but just like a party band. Remember that song from the 80s, I Want to Be a Lifeguard? That sort of novelty song? Like, this album reminds me of that. You know, it's just not very good, but it's worth it to have, I guess, because Ezra produced it. Whatever. Tony Bennett sings the hits of today. I'd heard about this album and seen it shown by several people. It was a pretty good original copy. Just dusty, but, you know, after I cleaned it, it was pretty good condition. So, figure I'd pick that up. I'm not a big fan of this type of music in general, but I heard this one is good. It does a few Beatles songs on here, and it sounds pretty good, so. Roger Daltrey, Under a Raging Moon. Probably his best known or biggest selling solo album. Has the song After the Fire that Pete Townsend wrote. Bryan Adams and Jim Valance co-wrote a couple songs on here for him. Let Me Down Easy was like an MTV hit. I mean, this album was pretty popular, I remember, on MTV when it came out. But it's pretty good. It's probably his most rock album, I would say. Johnny Winter Live. I mean, this album totally kicks ass. Has Rick Derringer on it. Has a couple covers. Well, actually, a lot of covers, but yeah, it sounds great. His guitar playing is great. Love Johnny Winter. What else we got here? Greg King. Now, I'm not a big Greg King fan or anything, but the reason I wanted to get this is because I knew that Joe Satriani, where is he? Right there. Played lead guitar on it. This is the one album he played lead guitar on. This is after his big album with Jeopardy, and I think one of his earlier albums had the breakup song, which is a pretty good song. This is okay, nothing special, but the guitar is really good. You can tell it's Satriani when he plays the solos. So I didn't realize, I had always thought he played on this before he started becoming a solo artist, but this came out in between Not of This Earth and Surfing with the Aliens. So he had already put out Not of This Earth when he played on this, but I was glad to get it for $1. So the Honey Drippers, this is Robert Plant's band in the 80s. Does some work with Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck. It's just an EP, 5 songs. I never had it, so always wanted to get it. Sounds really good. And finally, Dweezil Zappa, My Mother is a Space Cadet. If you've ever heard about this single, it was produced by Eddie Van Halen. And that's Dweezil there. He looks really young. I think he's like 12 here. And I think this is the rare 12-inch version of the single. It's no different than the regular 7-inch. It's 45 RPM. It is a promo with the shrink on it. So got it for like $4. So couldn't resist that. The song "My Mother's a Space Cadet" it isn't bad. Almost like early '80s new wave. A lot of good guitar in it. And the B-side is "Crunchy Water." So anyway, those are my recent pickups. So let me know what you think of Martin Birch. And if you like these videos, please subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks.